Question. Hi Kim, could you talk about the games of seduction between men and women? I've talked to people many times about these games of seduction, and one of the aspects that come out every time is that there are roles that both men and women should be playing to appeal to the other person. I've heard several times that women don't like good guys. You must be bad, rebellious, and unkind to women so they feel attracted to you. Unfortunately, that could be true in several cases, but I feel that kind of behavior could be detrimental to the self in the long run. Does this idea of how human beings should behave to create attraction come from subconscious selves? Hope you can clarify this. Thank you. Well, of course it comes from subconscious selves. Where else could it possibly come from? Because what you see in general between men and women, especially younger men and women who are in the, what you call it, dating age, is this incredibly artificial game that's going on. I mean, it's just so artificial. People's looks, people's behavior, the whole online dating where you're creating a profile, you think you're going to attract people by, you basically think you are going to attract a person that you can be happy with, but in order to attract that person you have to hide who you are. Now tell me, if you hide who you are, then you attract a person, then you start a relationship and they realize who you are, how is that going to make up for a happily ever after relationship? And if the other person has also hidden who he or she is, and you see who they really are, is it any wonder that a lot of these relationships break up very quickly? So it's just, I mean, personally I never participated in this because I couldn't. I just couldn't get myself. I couldn't get myself to take on this artificial role in order to attract a girl. I couldn't do it. And since I'm a spiritual person and I'm primarily talking for spiritual people, I mean, I would say that if you're a spiritual person, you need to consider what kind of a person do I want to attract? I mean, if you're a spiritual guy, do you really want to attract a woman who wants a bad boy? Because as a spiritual person, how can you be a bad boy? I mean, how can you play that role? You know, as a spiritual person, I always had an inherent respect for women. I couldn't get myself to treat them aggressively. I mean, what sense does that make? So I think many spiritual men will just see that you need to step beyond that. And if you are a spiritual woman, of course, why would you want a man who treats you poorly? You're probably beyond that, even from past lifetimes. So I think it's a matter of just simply recognizing that as a spiritual person, there are certain worldly activities you don't participate in. And one of these activities is this whole artificial dating scene. What are you striving for as a spiritual person? To me, you're really ultimately striving to be yourself. And so what you want to attract to you is a partner with whom you can be yourself. And your partner can be him or herself with you so that you can both have a relationship where you're accepting each other for who you are. And that means why even bother playing this game, playing these roles? I mean, if you're a spiritual person, you have to look at these roles and you say, I don't want to play them. And then you could say, if you're a young person and you really want to have a relationship, well, how do I then attract a different kind of partner? And my recommendation would be find a spiritual movement that appeals to you and participate in that movement and see whom you meet there. I mean, I know many spiritual people who met their partners in a spiritual movement because already there you have something in common. You have an approach to dating, for example, that isn't the artificialness. And it makes for a different kind of relationship. Now, I'm not trying to say that this means that spiritual people who meet in a spiritual movement live happily ever after, because you are always attracting a partner based on your psychology. There's a certain correspondence between the psychology of two people who feel attracted to each other. And in some cases, there's unresolved psychology that causes people to clash. And this can often be because you have in your life plan, you want to attract a partner who can help you overcome something in your psychology. So there are relationships that you see between spiritual people that are really kind of, they're focused on growth. Because they are focused on giving both people an opportunity to see something in their own psychology that they need to overcome. And in some cases, people do overcome it, and then they find a higher level of relationship. In other cases, they don't overcome it, and they split up, because just like you see relationships in the world that people can't get along when the honeymoon is over. That, of course, happens to spiritual people as well. But there are also spiritual people who have a relationship for a time, and they feel they have grown enough from that relationship and it's time to move on, perhaps to another relationship, perhaps to being alone. So there's a certain, for spiritual people, I would say that relationships are generally more dynamic than for many people in the world. Like, I know people from my family, my own generation, who were married to the same person for their whole life. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying these people are not spiritual. But I also know many, many people who have been divorced several times. And that's because for spiritual people, our life plan is focused on growth. And that means sometimes we need to have several relationships in order to have maximum growth in a lifetime. And what I wanted to say with all of this is that when you attract your first serious relationship, you have a certain psychology, you have a certain level of consciousness. And if you make use of that opportunity, and if you use the spiritual path in general, you can rise to a higher level. And you might need to attract another partner. And because it's this again, there's the worldly attitude to relationships, which is often focused on this happily ever after. So you're meant to attract your partner to you, and you stay with them for the rest of your life. And either you're happily ever after or you're unhappily ever after, but you still stay together. And I don't think this is really the paradigm for spiritual people in relationships. I think it's focused on growth and what that means for you individually. I'm not trying to say that there's a standard, because I don't think there is a standard. It's something you need to feel. I'm not saying spiritual people can't stay together for a lifetime. I'm just saying you need to be more flexible in your view. So in terms of what this person is talking about with the games of seduction between men and women, as a spiritual person, you are striving to overcome all of these outer games, right? And you could say the games of seduction. Well, what is that? It's the dating scene. You want to have a one-night stand, or you want to feel that you can seduce women, or you can seduce men. But as a spiritual person, do you really want to play those games? I mean, I can't really see it. I just can't. I don't know any spiritual people. Yeah, I know some spiritual people who played those games when they were young, but they very quickly grew out of them because they realized that this wasn't compatible with their spiritual outlook on life and their spiritual path. So I think it's just a matter of looking at it and seeing how artificial it is, and realizing that these games of seduction, they are artificial in themselves, and they lead to very artificial relationships. And is that really what you want? And then you have to then refuse to play these roles and find a way to attract people who are also refusing to play those roles so you can have a deeper relationship.